Today we're going to look at a really unique, interesting, and fun way of looking at what your past lives could have been. And we're going to look at your life in this life and what your talents are. Because think, where does your ability to sing come from? Maybe you come from a family who don't sing, but you have this talent. And really, even if you are from a family that all sing, how come you can sing on key? I mean, that's a real talent. There are many, many people who cannot. So today we're going to look at 10 different types of talents that you might have and what it might mean about the kind of past life you had. So first I'm going to talk about the different talents, and then after that I'm going to say what each one of the talents could mean about your past life. Hello, hello, hello. It's Carol Ann Chapman. I'm the author of When We Were Gods, which is a chronicle of my past life memories of Atlantis. So let's begin. What were you in a past life? If you have an ability to sing, love to sing, especially, it would be a special talent if the people in your family are not singers, but you love to sing and have an amazing talent to sing. Singing, right away you think of opera and entertainment, but singing is also something that's very important as well now, but especially when church services were so important and everyone went to church. The choir was really, really, really important. And do you have a sense that you might have been in a choir or, a soloist in your place of worship? So that's number one. Second talent. What if you've wanted to do and can do very well pottery, on a potter's wheel? That is, everybody doesn't want to do that. Do you? If you do, that's unusual and very special. So where did that come from? What kind of past life might you have had if you are talented in pottery? All right, right now, pottery is a special craft and only a few people do it, but there was in past times, pottery was so important. You couldn't go to a store and just get a dinner set. Couldn't get anything out of plastic. Everything had to be made by hand. And potters were very important. They made big urns to store things. They made big crocks to ferment food. They had all kinds of these pots for different types of things that were needed to store things and to use day by day. What about knitting? Now, knitting, both men and women, just like pottery, both men and women do pottery. Do you love knitting? All right now we think mainly of grandma knitting, or there's groups of women who just love to knit. But do you know that men also knit? And especially the knitters in the past. Women knit, yes, but the men who knitted were often sailors. So my series on how to find past lives based on your present circumstances. And say if in the video, the episode on what environment you love, the environment you said was that you really need to be by the ocean, which was an indication of having in the past life had something to do with the sea and possibly a sailor. Well, if on top of it you love to knit and you want to be by the sea, there's a really good chance that in the past you were a sailor. Now, clothes nowadays are something we just buy in a store, but in the past, people made their clothes, and they especially had to make woolen clothes from the beginning. We're still talking about knitting. So everybody in their home, they would have kept sheep, they would have sheared the sheep, then they would have put the wool through a process, the sheared wool, and then there was the cleaning and the brushing, and finally it had to be put on a spindle. Remember Sleeping Beauty pricked her finger on the spindle? That's when they're actually taking this wool and sort of, I don't know much about it, but they have to make it into yarn. And then that yarn was used to knit clothes. And the wool is very important for a sailor. It, of course, woolen clothes are not just for sailors, but for anybody who's by the water. I'd heard, and I've never gone and proved this by walking into the water wearing woolen clothes, but evidently wool keeps you warm even if you're in water, just like wool keeps you warm when you're out of the water. So wool is very important for that reason. Mechanical. Okay, it's number 4 on my list. Mechanical has to do with fixing things. Well, in a past life, people used horses and carriages and saddles and all of these bicycles and weapons of war. So if you have a mechanical ability in this lifetime, could you have been involved with one of those types of activities in a past life? Could be likely. The number 5 is having to do with fitness and dancing. I've put them together, and you'll see why later when I tell you what a talent or ability or a joy in fitness and dancing are for you. And I love to dance, but I was really surprised to find out that there are a lot of people who can't dance. They cannot hear the beat. They just can't do it. It's not there. Both fitness and dancing require a whole lot of physical activity. And so if you're drawn to fitness in this lifetime and like to lift weights or go to aerobics class or yoga or whatever, if you have a real strong desire to take really good care of your body, could you have in a past life where you could have been a dancer there that was entertainment even in the past, or you could have been in the military in a past life. Mathematics. There's a lot of people that just don't have a clue about mathematics. I remember, in fact, going to a parent-teacher conference and the number of mothers waiting, sitting in the kids' desk, waiting for our turn to talk to the teacher. And the mothers were saying, "Oh, math. There's no way I could ever do math." As if being a female, she would never admit to doing math. Well, did you see that movie or read the book, Hidden Figures, about Katherine Johnson? What a talented young woman in mathematics. And there are all these women who were computers at NASA doing the math that was so important for sending the rockets up in space. So, mathematics is a really exciting talent and ability to have. Well, in a past life, if you now have a talent for mathematics and love mathematics and are good at mathematics, in a past life, could you have been an astronomer? Could you have been involved with alchemy, chemistry, magic, making potions, and herbs like pharmacy, making different chemicals that would be of a healing nature? All of these things require mathematics and making precise measurements of things that could translate into a present lifetime talent for math. What about cooking? I mean, unbelievably, in our culture, cooking has become a talent, something that everybody had to do. Now you get things at drive-thrus, you get things at delis, you get ready-made things, food in the store. So many things are ready-made. They're in boxes. But what if for you, cooking is a real joy and you have a real talent for it? All right, here's an idea for cooking. In one of the environments that I mentioned in the last episode of this series was loving the plains, the flatlands. Well, if you're somebody that yearns for flatlands, usually these are people who love horses because the horses live in the plains. I mean, they live in other places, but could you have been a cook for cowboys? All right, that would go if especially you liked the plains. Now, you could have been a servant for the aristocracy, and I think being a servant was a great thing because you got to live in these beautiful, gorgeous homes, whereas your lords and ladies, they had to travel from place to place, and they had all these responsibilities, and whereas you could just really enjoy cooking. Anyway, you're the one who lived in the beautiful mansion. Yes, I know you likely lived downstairs, but still, when your lords and ladies were away, and they were likely away much of the year, you lived in their beautiful homes. Now, an artist, are you an artist? Do you have natural abilities to do art? Wow. In this lifetime, an artist is a lot about illustrations, and it's sort of it has a fluffy feel to it. People sort of feel about art is that they're sort of in a fluffy kind of category. But of course, there were very famous artists. You might have been one of them. The other thing, though, if you are really good with creating images with your hands, in the past, everything, all kinds of knowledge was saved through a scribe. Even if you lived in the old days when there were printing presses, not the kind of computerized presses we have now, but even in those days, books had to be illustrated. This before photography. So there's also the cultures that have handwriting that are like images. For example, Chinese, which is a logosyllabic language, beautiful, intricate characters that are part of that language. Or think of if you were in a past life, this was, I think, episode 2. If you were drawn to being in Egypt and in this lifetime you were an artist, could you have made hieroglyphics in Pharaoh's tombs and the other Egyptian temples? There's this beautiful book called How the Irish Saved Civilization, and it is about these Irish scribes who by hand copied all the wisdom of Europe while these barbarians were decimating and destroying libraries, churches, just they wrecked all of that culture that had built up for centuries and centuries and centuries in Europe so that there would have been nothing left. You got to read that book, How the Irish Saved Civilization. But it was these scribes sitting on these stools just faithfully copying all of these manuscripts. They didn't have printing presses. So if you're an artist in this lifetime and have a steady hand and know how to make beautiful images, does it resonate with you that you could have been a scribe, that you could have been transcribing manuscripts, that you could have been making beautiful images on manuscripts? Cool. Finally, we're not finally, we're number 9 now. Technology. Are you really good at technology? Do you feel comfortable with it? Is it a piece of cake, easy peasy? A lot of people, it's not. Are you someone comfortable with the technology? Well, I would think that then you could have been in Atlantis because Atlantis was highly technologically advanced just as we are right now. Finally, business. Do you have a knack for business? Are you a Warren Buffett type? Are you a person that just thrives on business? It's easy, you understand it, and it's fun for you. Well, likely you were a businessman in the past then. And there's different kinds of businessmen. For example, in Europe and China, throughout the world, the masters, the aristocracy, they had to be very astute as far as business. They had like corporations, had their agricultural businesses, they had importing, they created products. So you could have been part of that uh, higher level of society involved in big business in the past. If, however, that doesn't resonate with you, could you have been, say, a dressmaker or one of the many other guilds, such as jewelry makers and they brought in fabrics. They Because in those days people had to make their own clothes, so you could have had a shop where you sold rolls of fabrics, and people came in and bought ribbons and buttons to put on their dresses that they were gonna sew. Well, I hope that these ideas have been stimulating and exciting for you, and that it's helped you to have a feeling of your eternal nature, that you're not here only now, but that you were here at some time in the past, and you will be in the future as well. If you've enjoyed this, please tap the like button. And if you're new here and are interested in these topics, please subscribe, because I've got so much to share with you that will help you to have this sense that you're more than what you appear to be and that you are eternal. So, see you soon. Toodaloo. Bye.